I love that the Celtics unapologetically play the way that they play, and they don't, like I'm saying, say sorry for that. And again, they're leading by halftime. I think they're up by 10 at this point. But again, it just goes to show you when they're firing on all cylinders, they're really, really hard to be stopped, bro. And just their continuity. Just Julius Randle, bro. Again, like you're saying, the 31 points, it's massive, bro. Like you know what you're gonna get from Anthony Edwards, but like you're saying, he's been really the talk of kind of everybody that I've noticed and I listened to on the podcast. I don't have much to say if you're in the Cavs corner. Last night was very, again, I would say just disheartening and very sad, like traumatizing because 64 wins in the regular season, one of the better teams that we've seen in the last decade, in my opinion, in the regular season. But how does that translate? And unfortunately, it translates to a second round exit.
Jamal Murray is probably one of the toughest shot makers I've ever seen, bro. Just what he's able to do, and when he gets it going, bro, it just opens up the game for everyone, even Jokic, because if he's driving, then they're gonna probably double and then kick
100%
it out to
Yo.
Jokic, and
Oh
then
yeah.
Jokic is hitting threes this game, so that is another part of the game that we hadn't really seen throughout the whole series. I think he was 0 for 10 in the last two games or something like that.
Yeah.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I'm your co-host CJ. Here with my lovely co-host ZD. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey man, above ground, feeling good. Just hey, the hoops has been crazy, bro. I mean, at this point, we were just chopping it up for the last 20 minutes about it, but it's an unbelievable blessing to be able to watch these games and at the volume we've had over the last couple weeks. I don't think even during the regular season, I think I'm watching way more basketball now just because it's way more structured. So extremely excited to talk about it with you, man, and get into it. But my day's going well and I'm feeling great. How are you doing, bro?
Oh man, after last night, I'm feeling fantastic,
Oh
bro.
yeah,
After getting that big
yeah,
dub,
yeah.
and just kind of just been good, bro. Just been locked in with the content over at PCT, so can't complain, man. Just
I've been
work,
seeing it.
appreciate it,
Been
bro.
seeing it. I seen the today it was like Black Ops. I seen I
Oh
seen
yeah.
some Black Ops stuff, so that was pretty cool. It
Mm-hmm.
made me think about being a kid, but yeah, just super proud of you, man. Obviously, we do it together on this podcast, but just in your growth and your progression through Park Car Talks, but also through yourself, bro, because that's where it starts. We
Right.
were just talking about being joyful to compete, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you're just battling with yourself every day, trying to be a better version of yourself. So that's all it is.
Yes.
Congratulations, you're
I
doing it.
appreciate that, bro. Yes, sir.
Yes,
But yeah,
sir.
no, I'm doing great, bro. Can't complain, man. Been watching
Yes,
these
sir.
hoops and super competitive basketball, and it's what we've been asking for. It's what we've been
Yeah,
waiting for all season. So I'm doing fantastic, bro.
yeah, bro, and I want to get something out the way because we're about to get into this Knicks Celtics, right? But I don't want to wish anything bad on the Celtics and where they are right now. I was just telling CJ, like, bro, for you guys to have what's going on happen to you right now, I feel for you. I feel bad for you guys, but we do have to analyze the situation. And I'll just get right into it. Unfortunately, the Jayson Tatum injury before we even talk about anything that was going on in the game, I think that just shifts everything for them, right? Like we were talking about it before we got on, but it's just without him in the picture for the next 6 months, realistically, and that's on a progressive timeline. That's I would say if he heals correctly and he's healing quickly, 6 months is probably what they should expect. Um, yeah, and that changes where the Celtics are at, bro. I think it's one thing to lose this series, and I think they will lose this series. Kind of what I don't know if you saw him Get Up at First Take, but Jay Williams was saying that it's time for Jalen Brown to steal a win, and it's time to kind of put him front and center and see what he can give the Celtics. But yeah, they're going to be relying on him heavily over the next course of really the month into the 2026, right? Because I'm sure Tatum will sit probably the first few games, kind of like Kyrie. And I wish him nothing but the best, bro. This is injuries have killed us this playoffs. Dame and then JT. You never like to see it, but I just wanted to start it off with that. I do not wish bad on you guys, even though I am a Lakers fan, and I wish nothing but the best for Jayson Tatum. But what are your thoughts on that, bro? Obviously, it's a somber way to start the podcast, but I want to finish it out talking about the game. So how you
Right.
feeling about that?
Yeah, bro. It just after really just after seeing him go down in the game that he was having, and the situation that they were in 2-1, and potentially tying the series and going back to Boston and this and that, it sucks, bro. Like, you don't ever want to see that. And like you said, you're a Lakers fan, so like you don't like the Celtics at all, but even for you, you don't want to see one of the best players in the league get
No.
injured. And it just sucks, bro. It just it's a part of the game, which it's the beauty of the game in a sense. You don't know
Honestly,
when it's gonna
I love
happen,
that.
and when it does, it kind of gives people other opportunities, or a team an
Yeah,
opportunity to advance. So it sucks to see it. Like you said, don't really want to talk about it too much, and we'll obviously get into
right,
the game
right.
itself. But yeah, I told you before we started, it's looking like the Celtics' future is a lot darker than what we expected it to be at this point of the season. So
Yeah.
sucks.
Wowee.
Hate to see it, but hopefully
Wow.
he has a speedy recovery, and everything
Unbelievable.
goes as well as planned. But shout out to Jayson Tatum, bro. I feel like he gets a lot of
Yeah.
shade, and like everyone hates on him, but
And
he's one of
yeah,
the best
bro.
players that we have in this league. And
All
I
NBA
just
this
hate,
season.
yeah, 100%. And I
Yeah.
just, I hate seeing him. Hate seeing one of our premier players go down like that. But yeah, it sucks, bro.
That's an
Go,
L.
yeah.
And the timeline just shifts, bro. And getting right into the game, bro, they started off blazing as well. Like he had 42 points in his like just yeah, Jason Tatum's been unbelievable for the last few years, and so shout out to him for sure. But they started off blazing. 39 points in the first quarter, dude. We're getting just the Missoula ball, like you've alluded to, just the 3 pointers on threes. And I love that the Celtics unapologetically play the way that they play. And they don't, like I'm saying, say sorry for that. And again, they're leading by halftime. I think they're up by 10 at this point. But again, it just goes to show you when they're firing on all cylinders, they're really, really hard to be stopped, bro. And just their continuity. Again, Jason Tatum was really the head of the snake on this game. In this game, he was really seemed like he wanted to take over and win for his team. And just the look in his eye, bro, getting to his spots, hitting the mid range, hitting the 3 pointers, getting to the line. It was just cohesive basketball. It was awesome to see. Obviously, Jalen Brunson too, bro. Like we've talked about him on this podcast at length, but that battle has been it was crazy, bro. I think that's also when you're saying you're sad about this situation. It's like just seeing them go at it was
Hmm.
for me really exciting. And I was telling my girl like to have this be Knicks Celtics to decide who's going to the Eastern Conference Finals, like you couldn't draw it up better. And the Knicks are competing at a high level as well. Just the defense, the offense really,
Hmm.
honestly, like in this game, it was the offense, bro. 121, 113 final score. In this game, just everybody seemed to be hitting big shots, bro. It just, especially Brunson, obviously leading the way with the Knicks, 39 points. I think he had just being able to battle with Jason Tatum. It just speaks volumes of this series and what's been going on. The Knicks ended up battling back in the second half, bro. They scored 37 points in the third quarter to kind of get themselves really jump started, bro. And again, their offense, I told CJ about this a couple days ago, but to assume that they couldn't make the finals, I think was dumb. If you were thinking that, they have all the tools to do so. And OG Anunoby, McCall Bridges playing the way that they've been able to play defense in this game, mind you, McCall Bridges with two clutch game-winning steals, I think, in game one
Hmm.
and game two for them to be up 2-0. He's been awesome in this series, especially defensively, but he's come around on the offensive end too, bro. And I think for him, more importantly, was about the offense, right? Being able to be that two-way player, you really need that boost on offense. And I think, him and OG have been able to provide that down the stretch. And I love the way the Knicks have been playing, bro. Seeing the Knicks gel on offense. And again, Brunson's really the main one who's getting them going, bro. I think he had 12 assists in this game as well. So he's
Hmm.
obviously facilitating towards his teammates too, bro. It's unbelievable to watch. Like I even called my dad, man, and told him about it because I think there's players in the NBA who work extremely hard for what they got, and I think Jalen Brunson is one of those players. They scored 37 points in the third, 33 points in the fourth quarter to the Celtics. I think had 28 in the fourth. So I told CJ this before we hopped on the podcast, man. The Celtics have outplayed them in the series, but the Knicks have outplayed them in clutch time and honestly in the second half when it counts most. The Celtics usually get out to a quick lead, obviously hitting threes and playing the way that they play, but the Knicks are resilient, bro. They never back down from a challenge. And once again, that Jayson Tatum injury really put it, and it happened closer to the end of the game. That's why he was able to have such a great game. Still, he played the entire game essentially. He got hurt in the fourth, right?
Yeah.
I think it was
Yeah, it was in
yeah,
the
fourth
fourth. Yeah.
quarter. I forget what time period, but unfortunately, that's the way that he went out. But again, they did everything. I think the Celtics in this game realized that they're not going to win the series. They
Hmm.
did everything that they could, and the Knicks are still battling, still resilient, still scoring just as many points, putting up more.
Yeah.
So, what are your initial thoughts clearly on this being a 3-1 series? You know, to say like you just said it, bro, but to assume that we would be here is it's unbelievable. I thought the Celtics would probably go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but
Hmm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, bro. It's like you said, I was assuming that the Celtics were going to be able to win in five. So the fact that they're down 3-1 right now, completely flip flopped, and it, like you said, it kind of looked like after that injury to Tatum, and just kind of how the first two games were starting, and even that
That's
win
where they
just kind of
lost.
seemed, yeah, it just kind of seemed like it wasn't gonna end up happening that way. And like you said, it really, the Celtics have been outplaying them pretty much this whole series, but when it comes down to it in the second half, really, like you said, clutch time, the Knicks are far above better a better team than them in those type of situations. And I think it
100%.
just kind of goes to show the type, we talked about, Thibodeau all season and why he plays his
He
guys
deserves
40,
the credit.
40 minutes a game. It goes to show you why he does that, because it puts them in these type of situations a lot, because they were, I know they didn't beat, they were winless against the top three teams, Cavs, Celtics, Thunder, throughout the whole season. So that was obviously another thing going into the series,
Oh,
right? Kind of why
forgot
we
about
thought
that.
that.
Great.
But when it really comes down to it, you have a player like Jalen Brunson, you have the player like Josh Hart, the people that are gonna die for the ball, like stop it before it goes out of bounds, like that kind of wears and tears on you throughout a whole game. And when it really comes down to it, that's where the Knicks are just a better team than the Celtics in that case. And like you said, the Celtics are, I told you before we started there, they live in by the three, and they also just play through their best players. So it's hard whenever their players aren't really getting it going. And Jalen Brunson, it's a 5 point game with 5 minutes left. It's like I'm probably going to take Jalen Brunson in a lot of that cases, especially this series
Said that. Yeah.
specifically, because that's what they do. They just have been, they played so many minutes together throughout this whole season. They kind of understand where to be, and just they trust Brunson. So shout out to them. And it kind of just, it like I said, I did not expect this, bro. Like I really thought the Celtics were gonna win in five, and they just kind of, Knicks have shut me up.
Dude, and this was the best team game I've seen from the Knicks probably all year. I mean, look at the scoring. Just
Hmm.
so distribute. I think everybody was in double figures besides Josh Hart in the starting lineup,
Hmm.
above 20, I think.
20,
And
yeah.
it's just unreal because I texted you that, like we spoke about it. Yeah, they could be a finals team. They're playing perfectly. We've hated on Thibodeau for the minutes, but I think you just said it. I think at this point it's clearly paying off. So again, to each their own. But yeah, Jalen Brunson is going to make our first team all playoff team, bro. He's
Oh,
just
100%.
unreal. Um, I think, for him to come into New York, just in a total like landscape, just from my viewpoint, for them to be able to get Cat, get OG, get McCall, have Jalen Brunson be the spearhead of this entire offense. And again, bro, they're shooting 50% from the field, 40% from deep. You're gonna win so many games, bro. Like
Hmm.
it's harmonious basketball, and I think that's what me and CJ have been waiting to see from the Knicks, bro. They can go to the finals if they play this way. Again, coming down in the crunch time, the game is close, bro. I think the game flow throughout was very competitive, but high scoring. Um, lots of fouls called, lots of free throws, but ultimately, like you're saying, whenever it comes down to the nitty gritty, bro, gotta take the Knicks. Like if it's a close game and got Jalen Brunson on the other side, bro, and again, this game was so evenly distributed. Everybody was involved, so everybody's in a rhythm as well too. It just seemed like everybody was a rhythm. I talked about that 8 minutes ago, but everybody was in a rhythm in this game, very locked in, and on the Knicks side, that is. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said it, man, when the Celtics are playing so heavily through those two guys, and Jaylen Brown and JT, bro, I think we've underestimated the burden that they carry. Because if those guys don't play well, the Celtics obviously like they're not gonna get it done. And they did play well. I think that's why it's so demoralizing. Is JT obviously had a hell of a game, and we're going to talk about it with Jokic. It's very demoralizing to have your star players have 40, 50 points, Donovan Mitchell in a second, and lose.
Mm-hmm.
It means you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Something's wrong, like
Yeah.
with your team. So, yeah, dude, I think that's a perfect analysis. Like, just unbelievable basketball from the Knicks. The Celtics have run into a wall at the end of the year, which, of course, happens to everybody. The Lakers happened earlier to the Lakers, right? We look horrible. Julius Randle was killing us, right? We weren't able to match up. But yeah, the Celtics just bad timing, bad
Yeah.
injury timing, obviously. And honestly, they look tired. They look tired from last season winning the NBA Finals. They played so many games that I just think guys are not that what they want to go home, but I don't think they mind. Like I don't think they know that their chances are kind of dwindling
Mm-hmm.
when Jayson Tatum is like this and not on the court. So if
Mm-hmm.
you ask them, I think in their exit interviews, we'll see how they respond. I don't think it's going to be heads down. I think they know what they could have achieved if they were at full strength and not tired and not playing max amount of games. And it's not an excuse, but I know they'll be back.
Yeah.
They'll be back. I don't think they're going to win this series, bro, but they'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
100%, bro.
Do you think they're gonna
100%.
win the game 6 or game 5?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's a great question. I didn't talk about that. I think Jaylen Brown will have to step up to honestly the place that he went to in last year's finals when he won the MVP. Um, and he can tap into that. Jaylen Brown's no scrub. He definitely can be an all NBA caliber type player. But when you have four weapons that are operating at 20 points per game or more, some 25 or more, bro, it's difficult. And Cat and Brunson are zeros on defense, but OG and McCall Bridges are not. And Knicks can usually switch everything. They're similar, like they don't have better defense than the Celtics, but they can play similar style, a similar style of basketball, and they have guys that can get threes up. So I think the Celtics just have to lean into what they've continued to do, which is bomb threes. They're going to do that. They're going to lean into Pritchard. Probably going to see Al Horford out there more as well. But again, I think you're going to have to get a Jaylen Brown 50 piece,
Mm-hmm.
to really have any hope because the Knicks have proven time and time again against some of the best teams in the NBA that when their offense is going, they're pretty much unbeatable. If they have those four guys score 25 points or more, it's pretty much impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you thinking?
Yeah, same thing, bro. Like JB's gonna, or sorry, Jaylen Brown. There's a Jalen
Yeah,
Brunson as
JB.
yeah. There's a Jalen
Yeah,
Brunson as
JB.
well. That's why. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, nah.
Jaylen Brown is definitely gonna have to ball out, obviously with the Tatum injury. But I think, like you said, I brought it up earlier as well. With a team like with a coach like Missoula, he's proven that he's able to win a championship playing the way he does. It doesn't make sense for him to switch it up. You know what I mean? So obviously you're down your best player, but you got to kind of stick with what you know. And they're home this game, so I think they can. I think they can scrape out this win. It may not be the prettiest, and it's kind of like contradicting in a way, as I was saying that the Knicks have been playing the best basketball we've seen probably in the clutch. But I think them being at home, that Tatum injury, I think it's gonna leave a bad taste in their mouth. So I think they're gonna have a little fire underneath them, and they'll probably scrape around this dub, and I think it's gonna be Knicks in 6, though.
Yeah,
Honestly,
that's a good point as well. The desperation plays a factor. Yeah, and Missoula ball continues to prevail, bro. I think, like we were just saying it, but they've outplayed them in this series. They've shot a better percentage from deep recently, especially in the last 2 games, 2 to 3 games. But it's just that crunch time,
yeah,
and the second half, fourth quarter, a lot of questions come up with the Celtics, and I don't think they really know who to go to when it gets close. Like I said, it's just
yeah,
so many options.
hmm
Whereas the Knicks know Brunson has the ball. Brunson initiates what
hmm
happens. If he wants to pass to somebody, somebody will do that. But
Do you
I think
think
they have an
obviously
uphill battle.
obviously Tatum being injured is such a terrible thing, but like, do you think him being injured that situation that you're just saying, like, oh, we don't know who's gonna have a ball. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is probably gonna have the ball, right? So is that gonna make the offense a little more fluid, or
I think it has potential.
Mhm.
I think so. I think sometimes again we talked about it, but the isolation, the AAU style brand of basketball, that the no sets that the
Mhm.
Celtics play, right? That can kind of play into your favor in a desperation game like this, especially if guys are getting more shots than
Mhm.
normally what they would get because Tatum's no longer there.
Right?
Interesting question. I think so. I think it could provide some dividends.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I just thought about it as well, because that is a great point. They do have so many good players that they can give the ball when it in the crunch time. So
Great
I think that's
question.
why they kind of lack that consistency, and why the Knicks are so great, because they know Jalen Brunson's gonna have the ball in that time, so he's gonna
Everybody
initiate.
knows.
Everyone knows, yeah. So
I
yeah,
can say it.
just thought I'd bring that question up to you, because I think that's
I love
also a
that.
great point.
Yeah, that's a super good perspective. I think yeah, this series has been so good though. Even though it hasn't been competitive in my opinion in terms of the games,
Right.
obviously very difficult to come back from 3-1, but just unbelievable basketball, bro. Like I am extremely thankful to be doing this with you, man. I think it's kept me very close to the game, and specifically watching Mike Breen call it too is like awesome
Mm,
because he's gonna keep calling it if they win more games. So
hmm.
shout out to the Knicks, and Celtics season isn't over by any stretch of the means, but um, they got an uphill battle,
Very.
especially to explain it for sure.
Hmm.
100%. But yes, sir. Let's head out west. Timberwolves, Warriors, bro. Talk to me about it. What are you thinking, man? I know maybe you haven't watched the series a ton, and honestly, that's I would say like the Timberwolves have outplayed the Warriors in a sense of like they've played their style of basketball better than the Warriors have played their style. Obviously, when you remove Stephen Curry from the equation, but Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards are
Oh
going
man,
crazy. So
man,
what are you thinking
yeah.
about this?
That was gonna be my first point, bro. Obviously, like you said, I haven't been able to watch, or not that I haven't been able to. I haven't really watched it. I feel like this is
Yeah,
probably
like not super close. Yeah,
yeah. This
yeah.
this is one of the series where it's like I'll keep an eye on the
That's
score.
fair.
Maybe I'll click on the channel and watch it for a little bit. But I was able to watch the first half and ended up knocking out by the second half. But I saw Julius Randle going off on a burner that first half. He scored 19 points, and
He's
that's
been
he
awesome.
he's shutting me up, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think he might be on my one of my all
Although,
playoff teams without a doubt, because what
me
he's been
too.
able to provide for the Timberwolves, bro. And like you said, he got a triple double. Not this last game, but the prior game to that, game 3. He's just been going crazy, bro. Kind of showing what the type of player that we have seen in the regular season. He's showing that in the playoffs now, and I think the main thing from that is just because he's not the main option. And I feel like that was the thing
Yeah,
on the Knicks that kind of was his, not downfall, but kind of why he struggled so much, because just his play style, right? He's very ball dominant forward that it sometimes kind of feels like a black hole. I know I've said that a lot, but when he makes
yeah.
his shots,
No, for sure.
it's looking incredible. And I
Awesome.
feel like that's the thing with him now, especially his confidence, and being right next to Ant. I feel like that is such a huge part of why his game has been able to translate into this playoffs. But yeah, that was like all I really got from that first half. And then obviously
Yeah,
I know it was a great game. The Warriors were ahead, and then Ant came down and hit that big 3 to kind of send it to the second half. And I think that's kind of when the momentum shifted on their side. And I know Ant went crazy, right? He dropped like 30.
bro. In the third quarter, they had 40 points to the
Mm,
Warriors 17.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
unreal,
I
bro.
was about to say that too as well. Like
Dude,
the offense, whenever the
yeah,
Warriors don't have Steph Curry, is looking pretty muddy, bro.
it's
Like,
there.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
it's there.
It's not good.
Uh,
I know Kaminga has been balling out, so shout out to him. And I feel like we talked about that as well last pod. He's actually getting the opportunities to be able to take the shots and get some
been awesome.
run. And I feel like that's someone why hasn't he been playing more? You know what I mean? Like that was kind of seeing how he played last night and then the game prior to that. That's kind of my logic. It's like, you had that player on your getting DNPs pretty much all year, and
DNPs, like,
like not even touching the court, bro. And you know what I mean? And
wow.
it's crazy to me because I feel like, it sucks. Obviously, we are talking about the Tatum injury. Never want to see one of the best players in the league ever injured, but it gives these other guys opportunities. So hopefully whenever Curry comes back, Kuminga can actually, or even if
Yeah,
not saying that they're not going to win, but like if they get to that
next
point where Curry
year.
gets, next year,
Yeah,
and
like,
even
right.
in the series, if it gets to that point, just kind of how he's able to create his own shots. I feel like that's the offense that they were needing. Jimmy hasn't been having the greatest series, and I feel like
Yeah,
that kind of is. I don't know what they obviously we know playoff Jimmy, right? I don't know if the Warriors were expecting that because obviously that was a while ago. You know what I mean? 3-4 years ago that we were seeing Jimmy put up 40 each game. I just don't think that's kind of how the type of player he is right now. And obviously when you have Curry, he's able to, get those shots when he can, but he's not in. So Jimmy
yeah,
is the main facilitator, ball handler in the situations, and I just don't think the way that offense is. And also credit to the Timberwolves because they have, one of the best defenses right now still left that are still playing in the league. So in the playoffs at least, so it's kind of hard for them to be getting those shots, especially when they don't have the player at Steph's caliber. So, but that's kind of my
I love
takeaways
that.
from
A great
from this
analysis.
series. I haven't, like I said, I haven't really been keeping an eye on it. I'll definitely watch
Yeah, I
tonight's
love
game
that.
because this is a win or go home situation for the Warriors, and even if the series goes right for us, that this is going to be who we're going against. So I want to keep an eye out. See. Obviously, I know Ant is going to be going crazy, and I feel like that that
Ooh,
is that is the engine of their offense. But Julius Randle's also there too, so it's tough, bro. It's the Warriors are back against the wall. Hopefully, we could see a performance from Jimmy that we've seen in prior seasons, but it's looking like that might not be the case, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, dude, and I think the Timberwolves are gonna have two players on your list probably for all playoff spots. And again, man, they have outperformed our expectations again. So yeah, Anthony Edwards continues to put himself in positions to win, bro. The Warriors were up 64 to 58 at halftime. The Timberwolves came out dominating the third quarter. I think it was like a 39-24 run, bro. It just completely shifted the game in their favor. And again, like you're saying, Anthony Edwards is spearheading all of it. He's hitting big threes. For me, what it is his facilitation, right? Like passing out of doubles, learning, like especially against the Lakers, right? Even in the Warriors series, like people are following him around every year. The Warriors have good defenders. Sometimes Draymond tries to get on him and body him and bother him, and just seeing him progress and to being a better facilitator has been awesome to see. And they also just have a ton of like depth, bro. Like that
Mm-hmm.
anybody can come in off their bench or in their starting lineup and give them obviously 15, 20 points. And I think the Warriors are just struggling to score.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up a really good point with Jonathan Kuminga. Yeah, bro, he should have been playing. I think whenever I think about the way that he's played in the series, it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you remember this, but this last year, too, at the end of the year, he was doing great as well. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, I think there's a personal thing going on with him and Steve Kerr. Like, I heard some rumblings that he's trying to, like, get a max contract. They don't think
Yes.
he's a max player and
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff. But that can't be like the reason that your team is being held back offensively. And kind of to your point, I think Jimmy Butler's kind of been left on an island. Draymond Green made a really interesting comment about, well, if Steph Curry like could be out there, we know he'd be out there. Like if he could go Superman, he'd be Superman. And Curry was like, I can't do
I
that.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, like it sucks that this series got kind of derailed for the Warriors in that regard. But there's still no excuse. I think their
Yep.
offense at times has been stuck in mud. Buddy Hield has had a pretty decent series, but
Yep.
um, just Julius Randle, bro. Like, again, like you're saying, the 31 points, it's massive, bro. Like you know what you're gonna get from Anthony Edwards, but like you're saying, he's been really the talk of kind of everybody that I've noticed and I listened to on the podcast, just seeing what the type of player that he's been able to develop into and just being more confident in that Batman role. I think it's really suiting their team well. And the Warriors play a defensive style of basketball that's just smothering. 110 points, I think, is the most they've given up in this series.
The
There's a
Timberwolves.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I think it's the most or the second most. But I know that they don't give up 110 points usually, so um, even 110 points is still not really enough to me to really signify that you were going crazy on offense. I just think it's more so when you're missing Curry and you don't have that extra offense for yourself, it's going to be very tough. But like you said, Ant had that, I think it was a buzzer beating three at the
Hmm.
end of the half to kind of give them that momentum into the second half, and they were able to ride that. And they've won on good defense and then believing in the type of offense that they have. So Anthony Edwards is going to pound the ball, but he's becoming a better facilitator, and they have great 3-point shooters, and they're knocking down threes, bro.
Hmm.
Like when the Timberwolves are especially Ant. Like again, we've talked about it, but he's been one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA this season, bro. And
Hmm.
it doesn't seem like it's slowing down. Kind of going into the thoughts for next game, though, I think that's where the desperation is going to set in. Like you're saying, I think we got to watch closely, bro. This game's going to be big. I think Jimmy Butler is going to have, a much better game than he did in game four, but just look for him to kind of maybe get you 40 or 50. Like you're saying, you haven't seen that from him, that type of fire. And of course, it was a couple years ago whenever he was putting up those numbers, but he still is Jimmy Butler. He's still out there for a reason. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Warriors won this game.
Hmm.
I could definitely see if they start hitting threes or if pods can get hot. Somebody can provide some other offense somewhere from their bench or something. I think they'll be okay. But if Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards were scoring 60 points a game, I don't really know how you combat that. And Chris Finch has outcoached Steve Kerr. Simply
Hmm.
put, I think that's we didn't talk about coaching at all, in our analysis really, but when you talk about not playing Kuminga, that's kind of what it signifies to me is that I think Chris Finch is in a better understanding of where his team is at. And it's going to pay dividends. I think I could see the Timberwolves and the Thunder playing in the Western Conference Finals, and that's going to be a hell of a battle. Do
Yeah.
I think the Timberwolves can go to the finals? No. I think it's going to be tough for them to play the Thunder. I could see the Thunder getting rid of them in 6 games, but especially if the series ends up going 6 or 7, if Curry comes back, oh, that would be a nightmare for the
That would be
Timberwolves. So
crazy.
I know people in Minnesota are rooting for a win. Hopefully, you guys can get that W, but I know me and CJ are going to be watching closely for the Warriors to kind of shift their offense and focus towards Kuminga and Jimmy Butler. And again, like I think, yeah, when Curry's not in the picture, we don't have a ton to talk about.
Yeah.
Sad, but
Sadly.
it's tough, bro. But I think the Timberwolves are outplaying the Warriors in a sense that they're playing their style of basketball better than the Warriors are playing theirs.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yep, and that's kind of the way that I'm seeing this series. But again, man, I think Anthony Edwards has kind of come into his own. It's a lovely thing to see, and I continue to. I texted you and Cam that, bro. I was like, I hope they can shine because it's
Yeah.
been dope to watch their progression. And I know they sent the Lakers home, but they've been battling against the Warriors, bro. And DiVincenzo, all their other pieces, Nas Reed, like everybody's been good. Everybody,
Hmm.
Rudy at times, just they have a complete team as well. They deserve to move on
Hmm.
if they do so.
Yeah.
So yes, sir. But I'm heading back to the East, bro.
Yeah.
Man, let's talk about the Cavs and Pacers, bro. I mean, at this point, I don't have much to say if you're in the Cavs corner. Last night was very, again, I would say just disheartening and very sad, like traumatizing because 64 wins in the wrong regular season, one of the better teams that we've seen in the last decade, in my opinion, in the regular season. But how does that translate? And unfortunately, it translates to a second round exit. Uh, they jumped off to a quick lead, bro. 31-19, I think it was in the first quarter. And again, Donovan Mitchell's leading the way, bro, doing everything that he can for his team. He had 35 points in this one, so 8 of 25 shooting. Really did a lot of his damage in the first half. But again, leading the way. 31-19. You're thinking the Cavs are going to be doing well. The Pacers really couldn't get it going in the first quarter. I don't really know why, but in the second quarter, Hallie, Pascal, especially Andrew Nemar, they really started to make an imprint on their game. And I think Halliburton just is the player of the series, bro.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to give it to one guy who really turned this series into just a complete masterclass and just outside of game three, I think it was, where they had that dud performance.
Mm-hmm.
The buzzer beater, I think he had 31 points last night as well. Just extremely, extremely valuable to what they're doing over there. And I think the Pacers are just outplaying the Cavs in every single facet of the game. There's really no excuse. Defensively they're doing better. Offensively they're doing better. The Cavs bench just unreal. They went ghost in the probably. Isaac Okoro cannot play. He's a zero on offense. I think, bro, Max Strus.
Max Strus, yeah.
Supposedly he had texted the group chat and said, boys, we're not going home tonight, and this is kind of our year. Whatever, we're gonna come back 3-1. I think what was it? He was 0 of 9 from the field in this game. Yeah, zero, a bagel from your starter. So that already removes essentially two players. You might as well call that a two-player removal, because if somebody starting on an NBA team is giving you 0 points, that's not good. Evan Mobley had a great game, 24 points. I think he was 8 of 12 from the field. So, in my opinion, he should have shot more. Going into the second half, bro, I think it was, for me, I started to recognize, especially in the fourth quarter, that I just think the Cavs ran out of gas, bro. They didn't have the pieces, and maybe it was because of injuries. Maybe it was because of Darius Garland's toe injury, sure, but I don't want to make excuses for that. I think they got out-coached. The Pacers continued to lean into Pascal and Miles Turner and Andrew Nemhard and all of their ancillary pieces that, honestly, that's the reason they won the series right there. I think Tyrese Halliburton is the player of the series. He was doing the best stats-wise, but Andrew Nemhard was really the X factor, bro. In the third quarter, the Cavs were only able to muster up 20 points, which, again, that just kind of combats the Pacers scoring 19 in the first quarter. Whenever you have a dud quarter, bro, you're right back kind of into the game. And so it was close, bro. It was solid coming down the stretch. I think Donovan Mitchell missed three free throws and then ended up hitting a three. And then
Yes.
did you see that?
I remember that, yep.
Okay, yeah. And then
Crazy.
Miles Turner, yeah,
Miles
crazy,
Turner's
bro.
came down and hit a three.
Yeah, yeah. Miles Turner came down and hit a three and really sealed it. And just, bro, just we talked about it before we got on the pod, but they're the real deal,
Mm-hmm.
just the way that they play, they play as a unit. Everybody's just very good, TJ McConnell, Mathurin, they have bench pieces that can come in and give you energy. And I think the Cavs were just searching for that. Again, Isaac Okoro, great player, but he's not somebody who could contribute really in a playoff series. And I think, and Aaron Neesmith, even, like, just guys like that were just stepping up in big moments. And again, it's just a testament to the Pacers' resilience and what they've been able to do all season. And Donovan Mitchell just needs help. We spoke about it an hour ago now, but the question that was posed on the Hoop Collective is, should he leave? Should he look to go elsewhere? I don't know. I think he could build something great in Cleveland if he wants to, but I think at times in these playoff series, they just rely too heavily on him to do all the scoring, and it tires him out. At the end of the game, he just looked exhausted, and he had that injury last game too at halftime, and the TNT cameras were able to catch it, and he's been battling things too. But whenever you put so much heavy reliance on one star player and you're not able to get it done, it's tough, bro. It kind of signals that your team is lacking something. And I think the Darius Garland injury definitely impacted him, bro. But the Pacers just outplayed them in every facet of the word. I think, you know, looking at it objectively, if you would have told me which team had 64 wins, I would have said the Pacers. If that gives
Mm-hmm.
you a better understanding, is like when I was watching this series, it looked like to me the Pacers were much more complete. Like I'm saying, Pascal Siakam stepping up, averaging like 20 and 8 in the series, like on good efficiency. So just they did everything right, bro. I don't have too much to really add onto it. I think they took the wind out of the Cavaliers' sails. Cavs corner is definitely down bad right now, but hopefully they can kind of going to next season. Ty Jerome obviously didn't have the best series. Kenny Atkinson was talking about that and how he felt like he couldn't play certain players in certain situations because they weren't providing any value, and that makes sense. But ultimately, I think they should look at it as a lesson. Clearly, they got outplayed. It being 4-1, I think winning one game is a gentleman's sweep. You just got killed. And the Pacers deserve to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. But what were your initial thoughts, man? How do you feel about the Pacers season so far? Unfortunately, the Cavs season is coming to an end. And yeah, where does Donovan Mitchell go from here?
Yeah, bro. Just kind of, initial thoughts. Like you said, Tyrese Halliburton was hands down the best player in this series. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell was putting up better numbers, but, you know, he
Yeah,
was able to contribute to wins. And I think, that goes back to the question that we posed for our audience and even for ourselves. What matters most in the playoffs, depth or superstar? And I think this was a great example of depth. And I think
yeah,
a lot this whole playoffs has kind of been that, because a lot of the teams that were top heavy are kind of trickling out of the playoffs at this point. And I think it just goes to show the kind of what you were saying about the Timberwolves playing a better like their style of basketball better than the
better
style
than
of
the
the
Warriors.
Warriors. That's exact same situation with the Pacers.
Yeah,
They
that's a good
don't
analysis too.
really shy away from, all right, like let's slow it down a little bit. No, they're gonna be pushing the pace. No pun intended. We always gotta say it. They're gonna be pushing the pace
Yeah,
every single game, and regardless of
exactly.
if they're down, like you said, 30-19 in the first quarter, and then I think they were even down by 16 at some point in this game. Like no lead is really safe. I feel like we've been saying that. I feel like this playoffs in general has been a prime example of that. Like just because you're beating a team by 20 plus in the first half does not mean the game's over, because you got to go out into the second half, and if your foot is not on the gas, that team is going they start to smell blood. That lead goes down to 10, and then it goes
It
down to 5,
evaporated.
and then it kind of
Right.
gets to where it's like a little chippy now. And I feel like whenever you're playing your brand of basketball, you stick to what you know. Like the Pacers have been doing this whole playoffs in general. It's tough to guard those type of teams, because they just stick to what they know. They trust in their guys, and when you have the type of player that Tyrese Halliburton is, it's hard, especially when he's hitting his shots. I think he made like three threes in that second quarter, I believe.
Yeah, yeah,
It,
yeah.
it, it's it's
Third quarter or something.
Third quarter, yeah, that's what it was. It's tough because when he gets it going, it just opens up the game for everyone else. And shout out to Pascal. We've been showing him a lot of love, and I think a lot of people have, because they kind of seen that was what they were missing, and why that trade for him was such a huge deal. Because, or yeah, they traded for
Yeah.
him, right?
Yep.
And then they extended him, so now he has a big contract. That was a great signing, bro. Like that's exactly what they needed. Obviously Tyrese is a great player, but you need someone else right next to him that is going to be able to drop, like you said, 20 and 8 for this whole playoffs, and someone that's a reliable mid range, and doesn't rely so much on the three, but if he's open, he's going to knock it down as well, and he could post up. He's such a great complementary player for Hallie, you know what I mean? So it's great to see, bro. Like you said, you've been talking about Andrew Nemhard, Aaron Neesmith, even Benedict Mathurin. Like they have a deep team, man, and it reminds me of kind of how like the Thunder are in a sense. They may not be as good defensively as we are, but they're better offensively. I would say that as a Thunder fan, you know what I mean? Like, it just looks like it just flows a lot better. Obviously Hallie is kind of, I wouldn't say the type of player Shea is, but he is a great facilitator, and he's looking to pretty much pass. So it gives everyone else confidence in
That's
themselves,
very
especially
right.
if they swing it open, they're probably gonna knock it down at this point. And you have a team firing on all cylinders like that, and like credit to them as well. I feel like their defense has been really what's been impressing me,
A lot
because I feel
better.
like I feel like that's the thing. For the Pacers all season, I was kind of not talking down on them, but like was very skeptical of how well they would do this playoffs because of their defense. And it's looking great. Obviously, injuries aside, you still got to go out there and play. And they were down by 16, like I said, and they were able to get critical stops. And it's I
Oh
think it's
man.
I think it's the moments, when they're
Yeah.
going on runs, because that's what basketball is, bro. I feel like a lot of people tend to forget about that. It's a game of runs, like I was saying with the 20-point lead, and then if you go on a 10-0 run, now it's a 10-point lead, obviously
10-point
math,
lead,
but
right.
it's not even like, oh, we have the best defenders. No, it's just playing good defense, team defense, and I feel like that's what the Pacers have been doing. And obviously, when they are one of the better offensive teams, maybe not, maybe even the best offensive team right now still left. It's
Yeah, I'd say they're probably
the
the
best,
best.
yeah, the best. So it's looking great for them, bro. And kind of like what you were saying, your question about what Donovan Mitchell and kind of the Cavs direction. I don't want to discredit what they were able to do this season, because if roles were reversed and we were down three, we ended up losing to the Nuggets in this case, in 5 or whatever it may be. I would still go about it the same way, so I'm gonna go about it the same way with the Cavs as well. I think it's they're still a young team. I know you had texted our group chat with Cam, and you said you're 26, 25, whatever it may be. I think Donovan Mitchell might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
27. We're all going to fail in life. You know what I mean? And I feel like, it sucks for Donovan Mitchell because he has made the playoffs, I think, every year in his career, and he
Yeah.
hasn't made it past the second round. But nonetheless, he's still putting up the numbers. He's doing this. I think it's just more so, like you said, he just didn't have someone that can do that
That could
whenever
help.
he was struggling. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he just didn't have the help, and obviously they had a DPOY, they had the coach of the year, so it was a successful season. And I always like to bring up that exit interview with Giannis. Just because you didn't make it to the finals, or just because you don't win a championship, doesn't mean
He
it's a
brought that up
fail of a.
again, right? This
Yeah,
year, I think, in his exit interview too.
yeah, yeah, bro. Because it's how it is. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna win every year, realistically. So it's like, yes, I guess
Right.
you could say
I
it's a
love that.
fail of a season because you didn't make
Yeah,
it to the championship or Eastern Conference Finals. But just
a
because you
really good
didn't
point.
doesn't mean that this wasn't a good building
Very
block
good point.
for your team or for your career. You know what I mean? Like, to say that them losing this series, they're like, this is always going to be held against them, right? You won 60 plus games, you lost in 5 to the Pacers, this and that. And even last
Yeah.
year, with the whole lights is bright and this and that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I think they could have, or Jared Allen could have went about it a little bit differently. And I think you brought it up as well when we were talking, like, there was none of that talk this year,
Yeah. Yeah.
because regardless of the outcome of the season, this was a great year for them, and I think they just need another piece, or not even another piece. Maybe if, like you said, a Ty Jerome could have actually stepped up, or one of their bench players, and this have been a completely different series. So, I don't ever like to say it was a fail of a season and this and that, because like I said, if roles reverse and that was a question posed to me in the sense with the Thunder, I would have told you no, because this was a great year for them. They were a great team. They proved it to us. It's just kind of like, how can y'all do it in the playoffs? What were you missing? What does Donovan Mitchell need, or what could have anybody else on the team could have done better to attribute to wins? That's kind of how I'm
Right.
looking at it, and
Yeah, bro.
kind of what you were saying
Very
about
impressive.
Donovan Mitchell. What do you think, or like, is Cleveland the right spot for him? This and that. Honestly, bro, like you said, I don't have the answer, and I feel like that's why the front office, oh, they get paid millions to figure this
No,
out.
he didn't.
But in my
Yep.
eyes, I don't think he should leave. I think they could build something in Cleveland.
Agreed.
Obviously, this season they were healthy. And I mean, we like you said earlier, we don't want to use that as an excuse, right? But that has to be said in this conversation, just because they were down 2 of their starters, when it really came down to it. And of course, Donovan Mitchell was still able to do his thing. But when that happens, who if you get another piece for your team, hopefully that can help out that situation if that
Right.
comes up
That's gonna
again.
that's gonna boost it,
So
of course.
that's
Yeah,
kind of.
bro, and yeah, like that's a It's a really good perspective to have. And honestly, I think the Pacers have just they have more of what the Cavs wish they had. So again, just bigger guards, guys who are showing up in the playoffs. You know, you brought up the exit interviews, but Kenny said it. There's nothing else we can do besides focus on the now.
Hmm.
So I think that's a good way to wrap that up. Like it's just the Cavs have to figure out how they can be better right now because they haven't been able to do it. Like CJ's been saying, Donovan's waited a long time. I know Darius Garland's getting up there. He's definitely like you would think how long has DG been in here? Like 5 years, bro?
Yeah,
4 years.
like
But he
five.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's starting to get kind of not old, but older for sure. And
Hmm.
I know he thinks about it too. And that eye injury really derailed his season 2 seasons ago. Not this year, but 2 years ago. He looked like he was playing with so much joy this season. He had a lovely year. You know, Darius Garland for sure, stand up guy. Yeah, they just got a lot of questions they need to answer, dude. It's not anything like we know what Evan Mobley's going to be. We know Jared Allen's good. We know D Mitch is good. Darius Garland's good. But I think, like you said, it ended up prevailing true. It's their bench. Who's going
Hmm.
to play off of their bench?
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
pretty simple. But man, I am excited because this is a big one, bro. And I know you were just chopping it up a lot about this game, man. But I will let you take the floor because your team's still battling, bro. And we're heading out west. We're going back to the Thunder in the Nuggets series and tied at 2-2. Thunder recently just caught a W to make it 3-2. So, CJ, how are you feeling about your game five win, your game five win, y'all's game five win? And how are you feeling about the series, bro? Like, what the heck?
Yeah, yeah, bro. It was I was talking to you obviously before we started recording, and just kind of throughout the game texting and stuff. But this game, bro, this series is hands down the best series still as of right now in the playoffs, and I mean I would probably say probably in the playoffs in general. You know what I mean? Just the whole storyline of the MVPs and Jokic versus Shea. And granted, prior to this game, Jokic wasn't having the best series, and Shea has been kind of inconsistent. But I think it goes back to our whole thing we brought up, the bench versus a
Yeah,
superstar. And I feel like
yeah,
this game specifically, even the last game, we talked about it in our last pod. Our bench just shows up, bro, and not even, it may not be the scoring, but it's our defense. I feel like, obviously Jokic drops 44 last night. Fantastic game. Spectacular player, bro. I have no bad things to say. I might complain about the way he is and his antics sometimes. It just very annoying, but he
unbelievable,
he is a great
unbelievable.
player, bro. And I know most of y'all probably saw that shot that he hit against Chet, and I brought it up to you. I bet that kind of brought back a little PTSD for you on the shot that he hit against AD, and that
Yeah,
was
for
literally the
sure,
first thing I thought of because it was the exact same type of shot. But
unbelievable.
yeah, bro, just kind of going into it, just we started off super hot. I think it was a 12-2 lead. Um, and then from that point on, Denver
Nuggets,
calls a timeout, bro, and then it was Nuggets
Nuggets.
all game really. But kind of going into that the like after that timeout,
Yeah,
Jokic starts getting going, man. And obviously, I told you whenever, prior to starting, that Jokic and Jamal Murray 2-man game is probably the best like I've
unreal.
seen in a while. Just because
We,
whenever
I think maybe ever, bro.
ever,
I've
yeah,
never.
maybe
I didn't
ever.
see Stockton and Malone,
Right,
so
right. But like that is probably the closest thing that we have seen, and
we
just
have for
what
that.
what
Yeah,
Jamal Murray is able to do. Like you said it last pod, and I 100% agree with you. He is probably one of the, and obviously Kyrie, credit to him, he's definitely up
yeah,
there.
we talked. Yeah,
But
we
but Jamal Murray is probably one of the toughest shot makers I've ever seen, bro. Just what he's able to do, and when he gets it going, bro, it just opens up the game for everyone, even Jokic, because if he's driving, then they're gonna probably double and then kick
100%
it out to
yo.
Jokic, and
Oh
then
yeah,
Jokic is hitting threes this game. So that is another part of the game that we hadn't really seen throughout the whole series. I think he was 0 for 10 in the last two games or something like that.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like he hadn't been really hitting. This game he's hitting. Jamal Murray's hitting his shots. But other than that, the Denver bench and even their other starters were kind of ghosts, bro. So that was a huge contributing factor to us being able
But it
to
also,
slowly chipping away to get to the win. But when you have Jokic dropping 44, it's tough, bro. Because like I said, we throw a lot of bodies at him. Shout out to Jay Will, and specifically shout out to Hartenstein because he's been the main, defender on Jokic. And, granted, yeah, he dropped 44, but I mean, everything leading up to this point, he's been doing a great job. So credit to him. And that is, one of the key pieces that we added this past season. So I think that was, a huge pickup. And obviously Caruso, what he's able to provide. And the thing that I love about Caruso is just he's always going to be defending regardless of who it is. He's trying to block out Jokic to the best of his abilities. Usually fouls him, or usually whoever helps fouls him as well. But it's one of those things where he's just that type of player that makes those championship winning plays. And yeah, bro, it's kind of going into the half. It was 56 to 54. So they had the lead going into half.
yep.
And from that point, I was like, I was watching it with the boys. So shout out to the boys. We had we shoot on Tuesday, so that the game was yesterday. Yeah. And they're Alex is chirping me, Zay's chirping me. You know what I'm saying? As it always is. I just kind of live with it. I don't say nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro, it was
chirping too, bro. Before I let you get into it, I'm gonna shout him out right here. He was chirping about SGA foul baiting and shit today. I was like, sheesh, bro. Like, we'll see. I don't know. I think the discrepancies and the proof is in the pudding, but keep going.
Yeah, just kind of going into the second half. Second half. They outscore us 30 to 24, so they still have the lead. And it was really Jokic and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray being able to attack the rim, getting tough layup and ones. Mid-range jump shots, pull-ups, and then, like I said, Jokic's threes. Yeah, bro. It's not like we have one of the best defenses, like you said, probably the last decade. So it's not like we don't have the type of players that can guard him. It's just him making tough shots. And honestly, you got to live with that. Because there's nothing you can there's nothing you can really do in that situation.
If he hits, so be it.
Yeah,
like you're saying.
Yeah, because we're throwing Cason Wallace, we're throwing Alex Caruso, we're throwing J-Dub, like Shea, like everybody, and these are great defenders. So credit to Jamal Murray, bro. Like I said, when he's having a game like this,
he's
unreal. Exactly, it's tough to guard, and obviously Jokic. I keep bringing him up, but I mean it's hard not to.
He was making shit. He had a left-handed hook shot. You might even remember it. Just went like 10 feet in the air, and it was off glass. It was against Chet, and some of the stuff, like I know Chet is like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you're weird, bro.
Yeah.
Like, to even shoot that, and yeah, so.
But kind of going into where we won the game, fourth quarter, bro. And I feel like this has been the thing that everybody was talking about us. Even I had questions about if we would be able to do it, because I think I brought it up to you as well last pod. The point differential for when we beat them was like 27, and the point differential whenever the Nuggets beat us was like 3. So obviously numbers, y'all know that it was a close game when the Nuggets win. They were beating us by I believe 10. Like 12, like around, like 9, something like around that 9, yeah. So going into fourth, getting a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm like, damn it, Jokic is having one of the best games I've seen this playoff series.
Best game of the playoffs for him. This is the best game of the playoffs. Right. Game 5 against the Thunder.
I was about to say efficiency and his 3-point shot, and I think. We talked about it, right? When Jokic usually has these type of games, they usually lose. So the fact that they were able to scrape out with that dub that first game kind of says
game
something.
Game scared you, huh?
It scared me, because I'm like, oh fuck, bro, is Jokic like, and he's getting help. So that being said, going into the fourth quarter, bro, I haven't brought him up in my whole little rant that I've been going on, but Lou Dort was playing terrible, bro. terrible. I love Lou Dort. He's probably one of our best perimeter defenders, but it was getting to the point anytime I saw him like dribble drive, I was like, please pass the ball. Please pass the ball. What are you doing? Like, swing the ball. Because, they had their, for everyone that doesn't know, the reason why Shea hasn't been able to get it going as easily as he has been all season is because they're in a 2-3 zone. So it's harder for him to attack the mid range because there's going to be two, three, like three people are pretty much watching him every time he has the ball.
Yeah.
So and there was a lot of unforced unforced turnovers that Shea had. I don't want to just praise the players on my team because there are situations where I'm like, why would you do that? You literally drove into a double team and Christian Brown knocks the ball out. And it's,
how many turnovers did he have? Was it 4 or 5?
Dude, he had 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
So like I said, I think it's just I'm pretty sure we brought it up before, but I was talking to Zach about it. Whenever in the league, no one really plays 2-3 zones throughout the whole season. No, so and obviously they're NBA players. They know how to usually beat a 2-3 zone, but I think when it comes down to a playoff game situation, high intensity, you just haven't seen that. So it's hard for you to actually know how in during the game how to break it because you hadn't seen it all year. So I think that is the main reasons why we've been struggling with it. But like I was saying before, Lou Dort was playing pretty bad. I wanted him off the court, but Coach Dayton kept him in, and he ends up hitting 3 huge threes for us. Ends up getting the game to 3, and then I think that's when we kind of started getting our footing. I think Shea comes back in the game. He kind of is. I think we talked about it last game. Not even the bench, right? Because Lou Dort's one of our starters, but kind of the way he was playing, he didn't really play like to the capability that he usually does. They kept him in. He ended up putting us in a situation. Shea comes back in, and that's kind of when the game started to get into our flow. And obviously we were home, so that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, bro, it's just one of those games, bro. I was locked in the whole time. It was getting really chippy towards really the whole game, but that second or fourth quarter, like I was saying, Shea comes down, hits that big 3 to put us up by 6, I believe, and that's kind of when the game started to kind of get a little out of out of hand, and J-Dub hit that big 3, and J-Dub didn't have that great of a game, but that goes back to the depth of our team, bro. You know what I mean? Like our all-star, doesn't need to average 20 a whole series for us to be able to get these dubs. And, post game, after we win and stuff, the reporter was talking to Shea. Jokic had a monster game. How are you gonna stop it? Or what are y'all gonna be able to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? And he was saying pretty much, he's a great player, but when it boils down to it, if as long as we get a win, that's all that matters to me. And I feel like that is pretty much the embodiment of our team. You know what I mean? Everyone is going to be put in situations. Like I said, Lou Dort should not, like in my eyes, and obviously I'm not a coach, but I wouldn't have started him. But good thing we did, because right when I said that, he comes down, hits those threes, and it's those type of moments for players. That was really, obviously Shea had a great game. He dropped 31, but that was the Lou Dort game in my eyes. Because without him, we would not have been able to scrape out with that dub. So, bro, it was an incredible game. Like I said, super intense, like locked in the whole time. Obviously I'm like standing up, like, yeah, let's go, like, bro. It was great, man. Like I said, can't complain, but just kind of like my thoughts on the series and stuff, bro. One more game. That's how I feel. I was replying to that on Twitter to like all the Thunder pages, Thunder accounts, whatever it may be. I'm like, bro, like, we still have one more game. We got to win one more. You know, at the end of the day, like, yes, this was a great win. You know, we were down 2-1. Now we're up 3-2. But the series isn't over, especially that game that Jokic had. You know, it was made me a little worried in a sense because I thought they were going to be able to scrape out with this dub, but you know, when it boils down to it, they just didn't really have the Aaron Gordon. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have the type of game that he had been like the type
Nobody
of
really did.
game that he's really been having this whole series. To be fair, so you know, kind of going into predictions or whatever for Game 6, bro. It's gonna be huge. You know, we're gonna be at Ball Arena, so I know that the crowd is gonna be rocking. The elevation is definitely gonna be something that is gonna be a little issue, but you know, so it's gotten me a little comfortable being in close games, especially after these last two, kind of seeing what we are made of at this point. I feel like this series has really shown me a lot about my team and how well they can play under pressure and being down, and you know, all these things. It's one of those things where, you know, I said my prediction, you know, before the series started. I said that we would win in 6. You know, I'm still holding true to that, bro. I think we could come out with this dub in this next game, and you know, like I said, I don't like to get too far ahead of myself, but you know, kind of seeing the type of basketball we've been playing and how high intensity, and I think, you know, us being annoying and super aggressive and playing physical with Jokic, I think that has been a reason why he, prior to this last game, why he hasn't been having the type of games that we've been accustomed to him seeing. But I think also it's just, you know, if their role players are going to be able to knock down the shots that they were prior games, and you know, we'll see. But you know, I'm liking our chances right now, bro. You know, like I said, like, you know, I've been telling you all year, I've been waiting to see us in the playoffs, see what we do, and I've been super impressed with it. You know, because it's all fun and dandy whenever you're beating a team by 30, but are you going to be able to get the wins whenever you're down double digits in the fourth quarter? And we did that last game, so it's proven to me a lot. And when, you know, you have a player like Shea, you know, yes, he hasn't been shooting as efficiently as he has during the regular season, but that's expected. And they're throwing a zone at us. Oh, I didn't even bring this up. They also got out of the zone.
Yeah, they
You
got
know, in the fourth quarter,
I
like
was gonna
literally, like
say that.
last couple
Jeez,
minutes,
you
bro.
remember?
It's
Yeah,
it was super surprising to me, and like I
very
said,
weird stuff.
it was something I just didn't understand, because that I like
Yeah, I
those
don't. Yeah,
I like those odds for us. I mean,
same.
you've seen, and everyone that's been keeping up with the NBA season has seen what Shea can do when it's
Man
man to
on man.
man.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I like those chances, bro. But yeah, I want to hear what your thoughts are about it,
Yeah,
bro.
well,
I feel
yeah,
like I've been talking
I
a lot.
yeah, it's just unreal. I mean, a couple things. Like, I'll start where you stopped. Yeah, so the way that the Thunder guard is straight up, you want to know why? They have the best defensive rating we've seen in the last decade. They're not running zone. So against Nikola Jokic, they do boxes, so they'll switch. They'll have people switch onto him. They'll bother him in the post in the next position. It'll be different, but they don't run zones. They're not doing box and ones. Like, they're gonna let Jokic have his fun. Let's start there, bro. Unreal performance from him. I think, I told this to you before we hopped on the podcast, but to me, this was the biggest game of all of Chet, J-Dub, Shea's career, right? I would argue this was one of the bigger games of Jokic's career as well. And the reason I bring that up is just in terms of that shift in power dynamics. When you sent the anatomy of the rebuild, I think the West is shifting. We're going to talk about somebody special who's coming to the NBA in a second, but there's a lot of people that are in the Western Conference. It's not getting easier. It's only harder. I think Nikola Jokic realized that last night. To think that he wasn't going to show up and be efficient, though, is dumb. It's game 5. His team needs him. Of course he's going for 50. We talked about the game that he had against the Nets earlier in this regular season when he got called out. Yeah, dude. When they need a hero and they don't have anybody, looking at the box, once again, I saw it. Aaron Gordon, MPJ, Christian Braun, nobody, right? Yeah, I think we got 13 points. Jamal Murray was the second highest scorer. I think he had 28. Then it was 13, and
Mm-hmm.
then pretty much bare bones. So it put Nikola Jokic in a really tough spot. And like you're saying, I think he's exhausted. Starting with him, it's just so tough whenever your superstar player is put in positions where he kind of has to do everything. I think in the first quarter, it was very back and forth, bro. Like you're saying, I think it was 28-27 Nuggets. I
Mm-hmm.
think they were up by one. But like you're saying, going into that half, it was very close. It was still that 2-point game. And that third quarter, it was very telling because again, I think the Thunder have been resilient throughout the series, bro. Um, and I think unfortunately, it's the Nuggets are in a position where they have to go six deep. They don't have the bodies to withstand a team like the Thunder, who has the depth, the skill, the ability to put in an Aaron Wiggins or a Jalen Williams, have them go out, hit a couple threes, or play on Jokic, and I think that's really hurting them. In the fourth quarter, they ended up scoring 19 points, and I think that's what ultimately hurt the Nuggets. When you can't score in the fourth quarter, and Nikola Jokic is really the only person who's getting it going, and Jamal Murray too, I think it's tough. It's tough, and the Nuggets have just been put in a tough position pretty much throughout this series. They're relying on Aaron Gordon and hurt Michael Porter Jr. to really be their third option, and no bench scoring around that. And I think you're starting to see that slide through the cracks. You did a really good job of analyzing the game. J-Dub's big three, Shea had a big three, Lu Dort with those three threes. I think Chet Holmgren too, I think he's averaging like 3 or 4 blocks a game in this series. Just being a rim protector in every sense of the word, continuing to hold down the paint. And bro, it's just the Thunder are the best team in basketball, bro. Everybody's playing. You didn't bring this up, but you were like, are they a super team? I said no
Mm.
because they've drafted everybody, and it shows on the court. I think the balance that their offense is displaying right now is very good. You brought this up earlier, but J-Dub didn't have the best game, right? But I think it speaks volumes about your offense when you're still able to put up, 112, 114 points, and one of your all-stars isn't getting to 20. It says other people are doing other things. Alex Caruso in this game had 13 points. He was pretty much everywhere again,
Mm-hmm.
just making big time defensive plays and hitting, some big shots when it
Threes,
counted,
yeah.
especially the threes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like he's been super, super valuable to the Thunder. Probably their best signing in a little second, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. But the value that they got on that cat is unbelievable. So I think the Nuggets are just searching for somebody else to really help them. I think Russell Westbrook, and that's what you're going to get, right? You're going to get Russell Westbrook having a good game and then Russell Westbrook having a bad game. And, I think his defense has been a lot better. But, bro, when Russ is going, I don't know, 1 of 4 and playing, you know, I don't know, or 1 of 7, I think, he played
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes or something like that. Not really valuable because he's the main guy off the bench, and the Nuggets need bench scoring. And I think that's what's decided the series, bro. That was my third point, is just bench scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Thunder are able to rotate their pieces, give Shea an extended rest, right? Because I think Shea has the luxury of coming in the fourth quarter, whether it's a close game or not. Like, let's say it's even 9 points. He comes in, like, that's still a reachable enough lead for him to kind of battle back, but you can't sit Jokic for an extended period of time. So ultimately, this game was, I think, the biggest game of the playoffs so far, just for those two teams. Obviously, teams that win Game 5, I think 70% of the time they win the series or something like that. So
Yeah.
this was like a pivotal Game 5, and the Thunder were able to get it done, man. And I'm excited, bro, for Game 6. Like you're saying, it's at Ball Arena. Um, I think the Thunder's keys to success look like just playing through Shea and letting him kind of figure out how they can break the 2-3. They're going to have to hit some threes in this game. I think Aaron Wiggins and Casey Wallace are going to have another game like they did on the road the other day. And hopefully their bench is going to propel them to another win. I think the Nuggets have to lean into that two-man game with Jokic and Murray. And figure out who's going to be their third guy. Aaron Gordon, if he can do so, I think they can win this game. I think the desperation and the way that they've been playing pretty much this entire series, they've been right. For how depleted of a team they have, dude, this is an unbelievable showing from the Nuggets. Unbelievable to be able to compete with the best team in the NBA and only be down a game, right? And have a chance to still win the series. I think it speaks volumes for where they're at too as a team. They're just one piece away as well. But yeah, the Thunder got to keep making sure that again they can break the 2-3. They allow for themselves to take the open threes, and even if they're not dropping, still take them because, like you're saying, bro, Lou Dort, big 3 threes. He could have stopped shooting. He would have never gotten that. I think it's just again, bro. They have all these snipers on their team. They're extremely well versed, a ton of depth. It's been unbelievable to watch, bro. I don't really have anything else to say other than that. I think Nikola Jokic. Last thing I'll say about the Nuggets is when he has a game like this and it doesn't translate to winning, I think it doesn't leave them with that many options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not a good thing. Like I said, again with Donovan Mitchell, Jayson Tatum, the Celtics, right? Like they're kind of all in a similar spot where it's the other guys who are not really giving them what they need. And so the Cavs lost. I'm sure the Celtics are going to lose, and I'm sure the Nuggets will lose too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just think the Thunder are the much better team in the sense of when it comes down to crunch time and when players are exhausted, they're just able to have more bodies out there. They've continued to outscore the Nuggets bench, and I think that's what's going to decide the series.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I didn't even bring that up. Yeah, we outscored their bench alone with Alex Caruso. Him dropping 13. I think the Nuggets
Jesus.
bench had 10. So I think
Yeah.
that, like you
So
said, and you talked about it. That's a huge reason why we've been able to scrape out with these wins because they're able to come off the bench, contribute to the offense, let Shea rest for a little bit, and then come in when we need him to. And he's been showing up in the big moments. So
yeah, and yeah, if Jamal Murray can hit those shots though, man, over contested arms and all that, like I think it's just wow. Like he's gonna put he's they always have a chance if Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic are playing at a high level.
hmm
So
yeah,
I think that's really
I think they went scoreless for a while in that fourth quarter as well. I think it was like,
yeah, bro.
or they didn't make a
Six
field
to
goal for like
seven,
six,
yeah, for
six or
7 minutes or
7 minutes.
something.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy. And they were actually hitting their free throws today. I remember that was something in game 4 that we talked about that they weren't doing. I mean, they didn't go to their free throw line a lot. They only went 13, but they were able to knock down 12 of them. And that was something for us. We've been missing a lot of free throws lately. We were 18 for
Yeah, for
23.
sure.
So that's something that I'm a little worried about because I feel like, at home, you should be able to hit those. And, it's like, it was like, as we were chipping away as well, it would be like a and one, and we're missing the free throw, or like we split two, and like that starts to add up. You know what I mean? So
Dude, it
hopefully,
does. It does. And people don't think it will. And yeah, free throws are such a big discrepancy and bench scoring and all the little things that people don't really think matter in the playoffs. It all matters.
mm-hmm.
It
Yes,
all
sir.
matters. So yeah, bro. But hey, we touched on this last podcast, but just for a second, I'm excited to go into this new phase of the NBA, but I'll start with a question for you, bro. What do you think about the Western Conference? And now, obviously, the Dallas Mavericks have received the number one pick. You think they're taking Cooper Flagg, obviously. So, what do you think about the West being so loaded? How does that make you feel?
For obviously both of our teams in the West, so I'm pretty sure you have the same sentiment. But it's scary, bro,
Maybe it's
because
different for you. We'll see.
right, but it's pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie because I feel like I think I sent you a video as well where they kind of talked about East versus West and kind of like the moments of like lottery coming in or like even good players from the East usually come to the West and this and that and it's tough because I feel like it's loaded. You know what I mean? Obviously, Giannis is in the trade talks. He's talking about coming to the West, and KD is obviously in the West already, and they're talking about moving him to wherever team he would want to
Yeah,
go to.
yeah,
It's in my eyes, it's obviously my team is in a little bit a different spot, I guess, from your team, obviously, but that being said, it doesn't take away from the talent that is in the Western Conference. I feel like top to bottom. I mean, even the play-in, right? The Mavs barely missing the playoffs, getting the number one pick. It's like,
Oh my
all right,
gosh,
what,
bro.
and I see injuries as well, kind of derailed their season. But even like even the bottom teams, they're looking very promising. I feel like that's something we don't think of right now because we're so locked into the moment. But like future, like Portland and like all these teams that are kind of rebuilding in a sense, they're trying to slowly work their way back up, and it's like I told you, bro, it's a little scary for me, but besides that, it's I mean, I've always kind of thought the Western Conference was the better conference. I feel like East has always really been top heavy. Obviously Celtics have been great, and then like even when like Joel and Philly, like that, they're a great team, and it's kind of one of those things where it, it's always like the gauntlet. You know what I mean? I feel like even
Yeah,
Luka making through the Western Conference and making it to the finals, and like everyone was saying, like, oh, the Celtics had like a cakewalk, this and that. It's always kind of been like that, and I think it's just kind of adding to that with this upcoming draft. Top two picks are both in the Western Conference, so it's like they're gonna load up, and they have obviously
easily.
Mavs, Spurs. They have the team the Mavs have, and then the Spurs have Wemby, and they're going to be adding a number two pick to that. So it's been it's just a gauntlet, bro. That's all I can really say. That's
Yeah, yeah, bro. And I think for us, it changes some things. I think the Mavericks now look completely different, and that's dangerous to the Lakers. A lot better on defense and a lot more potent on offense. And to be honest with you, I think it shifts the landscape of the NBA a lot. Um, just because people don't think about this, but like ratings, nationally televised games, all of those things. Like the Wizards don't have any of that. Like there's so many teams that need a number one draft pick, and they're just not getting it. And
hmm
that's really interesting. They're trying to sway tanking. The reason I asked that question though is to say this. They're trying to sway tanking, but they're also trying to make it really random in the lottery. So when a team tanks like the Jazz, they all out tank, but they get X pick. You kind of see the correlation. Or the Pistons tank and they get the fifth pick. You see the correlation. It doesn't really matter now. And so if it doesn't matter, well, then that leaves things up like for not only debate, but I guess for chaos. You have the Dallas Mavericks who were essentially in the depths of hell a month ago, and now they're just fine. Because guess what? They have the number one pick, which is 5-star value. Like they could even trade it for a superstar player if they want. But
hmm
they can do whatever they want now that they have that pick. So I think it changes the landscape in a few ways. But yeah, the West is a gauntlet, bro. And I think for my team, I just think it gives us an even quicker timeline on trying to win now because Cooper Flagg's going to be here for the next decade, and same with Wemby. I don't know if Luka will be here for or playing at this level for the next decade. I think we got 6 years, 5, 6 years of peak Doncic probably left, which makes sense. He's already been playing for damn near 10 years. So,
hmm
like, I think in 2028, it'll be 10 years.
hmm
So that's crazy to think about, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In yeah, 2.5 years, 10 years. Anyways, that speeds up our time horizon. So Cooper Flag, he's probably gonna get drafted to the Mavericks unless they make some crazy trade for Giannis or like something like that. Um, and that's gonna drive in so much revenue for Dallas that they're gonna recoup a lot of the losses that they have with the Luka trade, and hopefully Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving feel rejuvenated. Um, But yeah, I just think it adds to the jungle that the West already is, and the Rockets and the Thunder and the Lakers and the Mavericks and the Spurs and all. It's just going to be a mess, bro. The plan's a mess. We have great teams that are going to be in the plan. We had 47 win teams in the plan this year, and in the Grizzlies and the Warriors. So it's just kind of a testament to where the league is headed. But I think the East desperately needs a Cooper Flag or a Wembanyama to be in their conference because they had some luck 8, 7 years ago. Obviously with Jayson Tatum, Embiid as well. But those guys are older now. And they haven't had a super crazy draft pick. Like obviously Risha Shea was the number one pick, obviously Eastern Conference, but I mean the type of player, a
Mhm.
generational player to go to the East, which is really interesting. Um, so yeah, that's interesting because I wanted to see your thoughts on that. But going specifically to the Mavericks, how do you feel that Cooper Flagg or adding Cooper Flagg to their team is going to improve their outlook? And obviously, do you think Nico Harrison now keeps his job?
Yeah. So first off, I think Nico is keeping his job. That saved his career, honestly. I feel like everyone is, obviously losing Luka, yes, everyone is probably still going to be thinking about that, but the fact that they were able to get the number one pick, who is probably more than likely going to be Cooper Flagg. I feel like people are probably going to be able to look past that, and depending on how well he does, of course, because we don't want to put this on him and then he ends up having a stinker because it might happen, but I doubt it. I think he's a great enough player to where he could just kind of plug into what they already had, and especially whenever Kyrie and AD get fully, like you said, I think that is probably definitely gonna rejuvenate them, and it's gonna bring joy back to Dallas. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah,
it was something that it was very, like you said, the depths of hell, bro. Fire Nico, get rid of him, this and that with his family, all,
that,
all,
that all
all the
changed
crazy
overnight.
stuff, crazy stuff.
Yeah, that all changed.
Changed, bro. But kind of going back to your first question about Cooper Flagg and how I think he's gonna be able to fit there, dude. I think he's gonna be exactly what they needed, bro. I think I brought it up to you. I don't know if it was on last pod or prior to us recording, whatever it may be, but it's what Nico was saying with the defense wins championship, and I feel like that's gonna be the main thing with him.
Yeah,
He's probably one of the, I think I might have talked to you about it. I kind of saw he reminds me a little bit of Jayson Tatum, just not as polished on offense, but better on the defensive side of the ball. And he's able to handle the ball, and pretty much, I mean, he led the Blue Devils in every major statistic category. So I think that kind of goes to show the type of game he has. But I think they're, obviously without Kyrie not having a any guard play, he might take some of that role, kind of being a ball handler and kind of facilitating the offense. But I think that might be where, maybe off season they might try to get a good backup
yeah.
PG to kind of, take that stress off of him.
Release,
So
release
yeah,
the
relieve
duty.
exactly. So he doesn't, because at the end of the day, he's still gonna be a rookie, bro. And I think that's something a lot of people have to
For
think
sure.
about as well. It's his first time in the league, kind of changing to the
Hey,
speed of.
Kyrie, hey, him and Kyrie finna be cold, bro. Like, I know
Oh
Kyrie is gonna tell him, like, bro, like,
yeah, yeah,
it's gonna
yeah,
be
bro.
tough.
Like I said,
It's tough.
that is exactly the type of player that I'm assuming Nico was looking for, and he ended up
Oh, bro.
getting that
Yeah.
perfect player. I saw I've been following these people on Twitter. They kind of do like measurements comparisons and like, oh, who that type of player, and I saw that they compared him to Scottie Pippen, like measurables and stuff. Like I think Cooper Flagg's a little bit taller, but they have like the same wingspan and they have the same weight and like vertical and this and that. So obviously not saying he's gonna be a Scottie Pippen type of player, but if he can be a great
Yeah.
defense.
He could be a Hall of Famer, bro. I'm
He
not going to lie to you.
Oh, 100%, bro. So I think, like I said, that's going to be a perfect, tandem, that little three-headed monster that they're going to have eventually, obviously, whenever Kyrie gets back. But even, with him and AD, that I'm excited to see what that looks like because, I feel like that's going to help AD's game, kind of relieve the pressure off of him being,
Right?
the main hub of offense, because we were seeing what Cooper Flag was doing throughout all season, and he's a very capable scorer. It's just if it's gonna be able to, his game is probably not gonna be able to translate as easily, but I'm assuming he's gonna be able to step it up, and he's gonna be getting the
Figure it
minutes.
out,
Yeah,
right?
he's gonna be getting the minutes as well because
Yeah.
I think I talked to you about it last year or last pod. Like, is he gonna play a 3 or 4? Either way, you know what I mean. I think he's a perfect type of plug and play type of player, and he's gonna be able to fit what they're trying to build in Dallas. And like I said,
Um,
I don't this is a little biased, and I think I might have just, last year, that little taste in my mouth, that being in the arena losing and the fans and shit like that, just like left a little sour taste in my mouth. So I don't like to see it because, I'm not a Mavs fan, but it's dope. The whole storyline kind of, and it kind of, I think I told you, kind of makes it seem like NBA is a little sus, but I mean, it is the lottery, and they ended up getting it. So perfect situation for them. And Nico is not
Yeah,
going anywhere, bro.
yeah, that's why I asked. But best possible fit, just what is he, 6'8"
Yeah, I
or
think he's
something
six
like that?
nine
6'9",
with
just
shoes or some shit.
awesome
Yeah.
size. He's got to get a 3-point shot, just
Mm-hmm.
develop that. But I think he's a perfect fit, bro, and exactly what the Mavericks are looking for. And kind of just to piggyback off what you're saying, I think they're extremely excited to not only get him in the building, but see how he works with the other players. And Max Christie, they have a lot of pieces that they can use around him, and
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna shine from day one, bro. I think obviously he'll be an early Rookie of the Year candidate, but like you're saying, if he gets the minutes, watch out, bro. I think he'll be pretty good, and really on the defensive end as well. Just because that's really a place where you don't have to be gifted, you just have to try hard and be show effort. But he comes in and immediately fits into everything that they're doing over there, and I really don't know how else to explain it. I think if you were to go to any team, it would be like that, but. Especially for the Mavericks, like we were talking about, coming from the depths of hell, this is perfect for them. So I'm glad I was able to hear your thoughts on that, bro. And if you're a Mavericks fan, exciting times. Me and CJ just touched on that, but Cooper Flagg should be coming to Dallas, and expect $100 million endorsement deals, and a lot more people in the arena, and
Mm-hmm.
season ticket holders trying to repurchase tickets that
Yeah,
they sold. Uh, you guys lucked out, and I told CJ this too. You guys always do though, man. Dirk, Luka. This time it's an American. So
yeah,
good for you guys,
yeah, man. It's
for
crazy.
sure.
It's crazy how it ends up working out, huh?
Yeah, man,
It's
this
so
is full
crazy.
circle. It's not. It's so crazy. You know what? She just said, like, this is so crazy. It's not crazy. Tim McMahon said anything's possible. I've seen Luka Doncic get traded before.
Mm,
Anything's possible. So he said we should take Cooper Flag, but I'm not gonna say that we are, because
mm.
anything's possible.
Fair, fair
I love
enough.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because we've seen it all, especially me and you. But brother, let's get into your picks today. I'm excited. We got a good betting segment to go through. I want to make sure like we recap. I need to find it because do you remember your picks that you made from last show?
I believe so. Let me double check.
Because
Oh yeah,
mine didn't hit. I had
yeah.
I had Tatum over.
Mine
Yeah.
didn't hit either.
Oh, it's
Sad,
frustrating.
sad days.
Yeah. I don't know if Brunson got 30 plus last Wednesday either.
Mm,
No, he didn't.
no, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I missed my play of the day, but my other picks missed too. I think besides Jokic, so I was 1 and 2 on the day. What about you?
Yeah, I think. Hold up. Let me just double check. I'm pretty sure. Uh, Hold on. Was last week when I did the 3-man play for the Thunder?
Yeah, you did a Thunder. You just missed it too, I
I
think.
just missed it. Yeah, the only person that didn't hit was Caruso,
Oh, right. Yeah,
but
you
I
said
went
that.
two for three. Isaiah
Okay.
Joe, I think he ended up hitting three threes, and Chet, balled out. He had, I think, like 30 points and rebounds,
Okay.
but Caruso had like 5 points, I believe, that game. But hopefully, my picks today can hit. I'll start it off, bro. I have
But
Jaylen Brown, bro. I think this is gonna be a huge. He's gonna, if the Celtics win, it's gonna be because of Jaylen Brown. So I had his points. I
he's
did
cooking.
I did 26.5. So I did the over on that.
That's looking good.
It's looking good.
It's looking great.
Really? What's he at right
Yeah.
now?
I mean, you'll see,
I
but
see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then another one. War or the Warriors Timberwolves. I'm going with the hot hand, bro. You know,
And Randall.
I'm going with Randall.
Wow, I like that.
21 and a half points. I think that's a good line for him, bro. He's been going crazy.
Ooh, I'm tailing that. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's so low. It's at 21 and a half. It should be at like 23.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I know.
very low. Okay, I like that play. The Jaylen Brown play, I think he's at 19, so
He's
that's
at
gonna
19.
smack
Yeah.
like third quarter. That's good. Bro, for me, it was a Jalen Brunson, Anthony Edwards parlay. So I had Jalen Brunson for 25, Anthony Edwards for 25, plus 110
Okay.
on flip. So little dual parlay. I just feel like I think Brunson's like he's not doing like too bad. I think he got like 13, 15 points or something like that. So need like 10 more, but I think Ant can get us 25, get us over the hump tonight. Hopefully close out game 5 and get themselves into the Western Conference. I'm sure Western Conference Finals. I'm sure they're excited to see who they're playing next. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, like that.
That's
Like those
it, bro.
plays.
Those are
Yes,
the
sir.
only 2 picks too. Little
Yeah.
parlay.
Yeah, a little two man.
Smooth.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, 2 man. Just build the bankroll.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Anything else you want to let the people know before we head out of here, bro?
Mm. Yeah, Thunder in 6. I'm Thunder up. I'm rooting for them in the finals, or in the finals. I'm rooting for them to get to the finals. But once they make the finals, that's my team. Now that the Cavs are out, my bracket is officially busted. That's what I got to say to my guys. And Stacks, hey, just watch Shea, bro. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Same, bro. Thunder in 6. Keep watching these games, man. Specifically the Thunder series. If y'all are gonna watch any one, I would recommend doing that one. That one's probably the best series that we have left still, playing. But yeah, nothing else besides that. If y'all liked and enjoyed this episode, 3-Man Weave, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time,
Please
man.
leave a like, comment, subscribe.
Peace.
Peace.
Thunder up,
Yo.
baby.
Yeah, LA always. Come on, dog. Yeah.